Longest lived people had high cholesterol levels. And isn't that funny? It is one of the most consistent themes of longevity research that the longest lived people have higher cholesterol. And yet we live in a world that hates cholesterol. And the moment cholesterol goes up, we put them on a cholesterol lowering medication. We could be doing the perfectly wrong thing to help these people live longer.
Sorry, they found that some of the longest living humans had high cholesterol levels.
That's right. That's what the Sweden study found, for example. What were some of the most consistent themes? They had good glucose control and high cholesterol. It is a molecule of life. Mitochondria have to have a cholesterol molecule in them in order to work. All sex hormones are built on cholesterol. It's no surprise if someone takes a cholesterol-lowering medication, their sex hormones go down.
There's good and bad cholesterol, right?
Well, that's, as the story goes, yes. And yet I think that's overly simplified, where people will say LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol, and yet that gets included in these studies of longevity. So I think the good and bad aspect of it is not entirely fair or accurate. We need LDL. LDL actually helps the body fight infections, so it's also an unsung hero of immunity. Why are we so obsessed with cholesterol? Why not triglycerides, which is another lipid that can be measured that is far more predictive of who's going to have a heart attack or not? And I think it's because we have chosen markers in modern medicine that we have well-designed drugs. So it's a really, really good way to sell a lot of drugs.
That you're more concerned if somebody has a total cholesterol of less than 200 versus somebody who has a higher cholesterol. Explain that and what it does to block nitric oxide.
Our body makes cholesterol, and so our body doesn't make mistakes. If our body needs cholesterol, our body's going to make it upon demand. So we get cholesterol from the diet. We also get it through endogenous production. Cholesterol is also the backbone for things like testosterone, estrogen, vitamin D. So if our cholesterol gets too low, we can't make hormones for vitamin D. We have a global epidemic of testosterone deficiency in men and hormone imbalances in women and vitamin D deficiency. Our body heals itself, right? Our body senses what's going on, then self-corrects. But if we have a drug that inhibits endogenous cholesterol production, which is what a statin does, then our body can't respond. So if it senses that we're not getting enough cholesterol or that we need to make it, then the body can't. And the consequences of that are obviously obvious now.
Is this controversy about cholesterol, is it friend or foe?
First of all, cholesterol has become a swear word. Everybody thinks it's evil. And the moment the cholesterol goes around 200, everybody gets a pill. You must understand that cholesterol is essential for life. Where does cholesterol come from? I put this question to most of my patients and they'll say, obviously from food. I said, yes. Yes? Not at all. 85% of the cholesterol is made by our body. If something is made in our body, how can it be bad? Cholesterol is deeply linked with our immunity. Does a damn good job for that. Deactivating bacteria, controlling infections, protecting damage, reducing the chances of AIDS, Alzheimer's, recovery from illness. All that is done by cholesterol. So the cholesterol varies in different times of the day, different seasons, different parts of the year. With winter, it increases. With summer, it decreases. It increases after infections, increases after surgery, dental treatment. Even stress increases it. And when we are relaxed, then the cholesterol comes down.
You seem to be a little bit in love with cholesterol. I think I noticed a spark in your eyes right now when you were talking about it.
Well, that's true. I love cholesterol. And I always tell people, do you know what my cholesterol is? Take a deep breath. It's 325. Really? Yes, it is. And I'm still alive.
You need some fats in your diet too.
Oh yeah. If you don't, your brain will deteriorate.
Yeah.
You know, all these people with Alzheimer's and dementias, that's all fat deficiency.
Really?
Yeah. Statin drugs came out in 1987, and that creates a cholesterol deficiency. And so low cholesterol and low fat deteriorates your brain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's a physician-caused disease. And we know statin drugs don't work because heart disease is still the #1 killer in America.
Yeah.
So when's a president or a senator or someone going to come on television and say, you know what, I think there's something wrong here? But they can't.
Right.
Because the medical monopoly
People that are having 4 teaspoons of coconut oil 3 times a day, they're not dying of heart disease. They're not having strokes because it's not the fat that causes this. The ketogenic diet's been around since about the 1920s to help conquer neurological problems, and the people on the ketogenic diets aren't dying of heart disease. Because remember, we looked at that, it's not the fat. The fat's not the problem. So what are the dangerous fats? The dangerous fats would be the altered fats. The other dangerous fat is the huge amount of fat that's dumped in the body from the high carbohydrate, high sugar diet, which we also looked at when we looked at the liver. So what are the altered fats? One of the most dangerous altered fats is the margarine.
The number one question I get on social media is this: Ben, I started to eat more healthy fat because of your recommendation, and now my total cholesterol and my total LDL is high, and my doctor is concerned. What should I do? You know what I say? Great job. You probably feel better, don't you? You know, cholesterol helps to build your sex hormones, helps the liver produce bile, which helps to break down fat, helps you detoxify. The cell membrane, which is around every cell in your body, is made up of cholesterol. Cholesterol is vital for health and healing. It's not the cholesterol that causes the damage to the arteries in the arterial wall, it's the inflammation. The cholesterol is there as a band-aid. So blaming cholesterol for heart disease, it's like blaming firefighters for buildings that catch on fire, because every time you see a building that catches on fire, you notice there are firefighters there. Are the firefighters the cause of the fire? No, they are there to put out the fire. Cholesterol is there to put out the inflammation fire. So when you're getting a cholesterol panel done, yeah, get a total cholesterol, get a total LDL, but those don't mean much. Get your particle sizes done for the LDL. There are small, sticky, which is called pattern B LDL. Think of B as bad. And then there's pattern A, large and fluffy, good. So if you have a high total LDL, but the majority is the large and fluffy, no cause for concern. You also want to get triglycerides. You want that under 100. HDL, you want that over 50. And then you look at your inflammatory markers.
LDL has always been thought of as the bad guy. High LDL, oh, you need a statin. Well, there are 2 LDLs. There's not one. One's called large buoyant and one's called small dense. They are not the same. Large buoyant LDL is cardiovascularly neutral, and it's the one that dietary fat raises. So dietary fat turns out to not be very important in terms of cardiovascular disease. Small dense, on the other hand, is very important. Small dense turns out to be the atherogenic particle, or at least an evolution of the atherogenic particle, called remnant cholesterol. And small dense can get under the surface of the endothelial cell in the arteries and start the foam cell formation process that leads to the plaque that leads to the heart disease. And it's more easily oxidized because it's smaller. It's the bad guy in the story. And what raises your small dense LDL? Well, the same thing that raises your triglyceride, because that's the thing that gets turned into the small dense LDL. That's sugar. So sugar is the driver of the LDL fraction that generates the heart disease. Dietary fat is not. And then we have HDL. And HDL, for the most part, is good. The higher the HDL, the better off it is. And the reason is because that's also an evolutionary output of LDL once the cholesterol is offloaded. And then that comes back to the liver to be reloaded. So basically, the HDL is a shuttle mechanism. And so the higher the HDL, the better the shuttle mechanism's working.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States. 695,000 people die every year from heart disease. And what's interesting, when I looked at the research, it actually shows that people who have normal to low cholesterol actually are at higher risk of heart disease than those with high cholesterol. Statins are a big use for people with high cholesterol, but I have Dr. Nathan Bryan with me today, who's a world-renowned nitric oxide researcher. And Dr. Nathan, what are your thoughts on statin use as it pertains to heart disease?
Well, my thoughts are based on actual data. And we know these drugs have been approved on the market since the 1980s. In fact, the American Heart Association was so bold back in the late 90s saying that treating cholesterol, getting your cholesterol lower with these statin medications would eradicate cardiovascular disease and heart disease by the turn of the century. So where's that led us? In the 1980s, there were about 1,400 PCIs, what we call percutaneous coronary interventions or stents, put in every 6 years. Today, there are more than 3,000 stents and PCIs every year. So I think not only was the American Heart Association off in their predictions, we've actually gotten worse. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. Targeting cholesterol to eradicate heart disease has done just the opposite. So these statin medications are not only not improving health, it's making people unhealthy, causing diabetes, Alzheimer's, metabolic disease, they're mitochondrial toxicants, leading to perhaps an increased risk of certain cancers. So cholesterol is not the root cause of heart disease, and targeting it with cholesterol-lowering medication is not the answer.
What is your opinion on high cholesterol?
Well, remember, do you mean your total cholesterol? Do you mean your LDL? Do you mean your HDL? Do you mean your triglycerides? Because that would give me different answers. If your total cholesterol is elevated and I see triglycerides driving up, well, then I'm concerned about your sugar intake. If just your LDL is elevated and it's making your total cholesterol go up, then I'm concerned that there's something very inflammatory, that you have some irritation in your body that needs repair. If your HDL is way too low, that means you're not exercising enough. So there's multiple factors. It depends on what levels are abnormal.
Only cause of heart disease. Now, what causes that is multifactorial, but the number one leading cause is high insulin levels. So you can see how keto actually lowers risk of heart disease. Cholesterol is not an issue. More people die from heart disease with normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. It's absolutely backwards, my friend. So it's not cholesterol that causes the heart disease. As a matter of fact, there's only one cause of heart disease, and that is damage to the blood vessel. That's the only cause of heart disease. Now, what causes that is multifactorial, but the number one leading cause is high insulin levels. So you can see how keto actually lowers risk of heart disease.
There was a famous study done in 1994. They looked at antihypertensive and lipid-lowering treatments to prevent heart attacks. They looked at 10,000 participants with high LDL, and LDL is supposed to be the bad cholesterol. It really isn't. They divided those people into two groups. They gave one group a statin drug, and they gave the other group a diet. The statin drug did not reduce the death rate from heart attacks or from any other cause. Let me say it again. The statin drugs did not reduce the death from heart attacks nor from any other cause, because there is no relationship between high cholesterol and heart disease. And well, oh, by the way, it's not just the naturopathic doctor who's saying this. This information has been trying to leak itself into the mainstream for a long time. Johnny Bowden, Stephen Sinatra wrote this book a number of years ago, The Great Cholesterol Myth. My favorite is this book, The Cholesterol Myths by Ufi Ravenskov, a medical doctor and PhD from Russia.
Dr. Ken Berry here, family physician. Today I have the great honor of chatting with Dr. David Diamond, a PhD researcher who's been looking at the lipid hypothesis, total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, familial hypercholesterolemia, and the research behind these topics. There's nothing more frustrating for someone to adopt a proper human diet, low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore, and all of their metabolic markers be improving. They're losing weight, they feel better, they look better, they sleep better, but their damn cholesterol went up, their LDL went up, and their doctor stripped a gear and flipped out and told them to stop that immediately, start a statin or worse, and now you're confused. I thought a proper human diet sounds healthy, should be healthy. Why did it do this to my cholesterol? That's what we're going to be discussing today.
Lowering cholesterol is a complete waste of time. There was a dogma, saturated fat causes heart disease. No. It's complete bullshit, Del.
Wow.
Wasn't cherry picking. I looked at all the data and put it together, and it clearly showed there was no relationship. So if saturated fat doesn't cause heart disease, that means cholesterol can't be that important a risk factor for heart disease. So I looked at all the cholesterol data and hold on a minute. For most people, it isn't a risk factor for heart disease, only in extreme cases. So cholesterol isn't that important a risk factor. If cholesterol isn't that important a risk factor, how do statins work? 2021, myself and two other cardiologists did analysis of this. We took all of the published data up to date on randomized controlled trials on cholesterol lowering drugs and said, is there a correlation from those trials that you lower LDL cholesterol and you prevent cardiovascular events? No correlation at all. So my approach to patients, and everyone should hear this, is lowering cholesterol is a complete waste of time based upon the best evidence independently analyzed.
Wow.
Lowering cholesterol is a complete waste of time.